Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to On York. I'm your host, Matthew C. Prasad, and today with my special guest, Professor Tom Moore. He's in the department for this school for journalism, and he helps people out in this school actually for journalism and all the other stuff. So, Professor, what is your specialty in the journalism?
If I had to narrow one thing down, it would be breaking news. I covered business news for quite a while when I worked at Bloomberg Radio and TV, back in the previous century. But then I went to CBS News, and we would literally work on watching what was happening that minute, whether it was a dam that would break and it burst in the middle of the country, or whether it was something with the Senate or the House of Representatives in Washington, D.C., something with a big newsmaker, a major world leader. Breaking news was my specialty, and it kind of dawned on me that instead of a term we use in journalism is general assignment, where you cover a lot of different stories, you never know what your story is going to be that day. I realized actually my specialty is reacting to news that happens at that moment.
Mm-hmm. So I want to say what point where did you realize that this was for you? Like what point in your professional career or even your school career did you decide this was the right profession for you?
We had a very small radio station at my college. 10 watts was the power. It could barely reach the entire radius of campus. And I go in the morning. The only shift that was available to do the news, to do a show, was pre-dawn. So I'd go in at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, turn on the transmitter, and when I knew that the electricity would go shooting through the transmitter up to the antenna, I thought I was going to get a shock or something. I was scared to turn the transmitter on.
Wow, that's...
But yeah, it was. I remember clearly that I thought I was going to get shocked. So I turned it on, sat down, and would play music, but at the top of the hour, 6 a.m., 7 a.m., 8 a.m., I would do the news. And the Associated Press printer was going. This is all before the internet, all before computer printers. It was a printer that made that old-fashioned sound, and I would tear the news reports off the printer and put them in order and try to read that day's news, whether it was 6 a.m., 7 a.m., 8 a.m. So that's when I knew that I kind of liked doing that. It was in college. And they gave me a terrible shift first thing in the morning, which ironically is one of the best times to work because the most people are the hungriest for news first thing in the morning.
Yeah, that's really interesting because it also kind of showed your determination because like you said, you were afraid you're going to get shocked. So the system that they had was not the best, clearly. Yeah, it shows your character really that you keep going at it.
It looked like an old gym locker with a piece of metal on the front, and you had to throw a switch like a circuit breaker, and the machine, the electricity made a humming, crazy noise. And I remember very clearly in 1980 something being quite scared.
Yeah. So what would you say what would your strategy when it comes to encountering breaking news?
Well, the biggest story that I ever covered, but it was in the newsroom. I didn't go out in New York City to cover it. In the newsroom, the biggest story I ever covered was 9/11. Back in 2001, when the Twin Towers went down and the Pentagon was hit, I remember looking around the newsroom and people who were senior to me, more experience than I had, they were in tears. They were cursing nonstop. They lost it. But then they calmed down and they got to work. And they did what they're good at. They got on the phone. They started reading the news that was on the computers at the time about what was happening and trying to summarize it and get it on the radio or get it on the TV. I remember clearly I was trying to do that too. I calmed down after a few minutes. I did stop for a minute and realize that the more senior people had a moment of insanity, and they had an insane reaction with, like I said, the cursing and the crying. They sent reporters out to go cover the buildings that had been hit. And for a moment, one of the senior editors thought that he had sent those reporters to their deaths. He thought maybe they were in danger or dead. He was crying in the newsroom. Tough guy, Vietnam vet, crying in the newsroom. I ignored it. I did not go over and try to comfort him. He's a tough old guy. And I went back to my job and I tried to figure out who might comment on it. And I got an NYU professor on the phone to say, yeah, this is crazy. We don't know a lot yet, but this changes everything. I remember that soundbite. This changes everything. It changes what the United States considers a threat. It makes the United States look vulnerable. Well, however he said it, this changes everything. So I got on the phone and just started calling people who might know about disasters like this, and I got a professor on the phone.
Yeah, it's a really traumatic experience, 9/11, everyone knows that. Me personally, I'm only 21 years old, so when it happened, I was barely a year old, so it's I don't really have any memories. but like, what was it like for you? And like, what was like the line between professionalism and like your personal, like, your thoughts? Like, what was it like for you?
I saw those people flip out all around me, and then they calmed down and they got back to work. I got back to work. But I also said to my bosses, hey, I came in at 4 o'clock this morning. The attacks happened at 9 or 10 in the morning. And I had been there since about 3 or 4 in the morning. That was my shift, early morning. And I was usually done by noon. So by about 1 o'clock, I said, I'm going to go home because I want to check on my family. My kids are little, and I want to see how my wife was doing. And I had to walk home. It's the only time in my life I walked from Manhattan, 59th Street, East 59th, all the way down across the Williamsburg Bridge to Park Slope, Brooklyn. So even though I tried hard to be a professional that day, I really wanted to finish my shift and head home because I knew I could get to work the next day. No matter what, I promised them I'd be there the next morning.
Yeah, like I understand, like it must have been like really, really traumatic, and I would love to like talk to you more about this, but like unfortunately we don't have the time, so unfortunately we're gonna have to wrap it up. This has been One York. I'm Matthew C. Prasad. This has been my amazing guest, Professor Tom Moore, and we'll see you guys next time. There we go.
You didn't see the tears come out, did you? Did you see the tears come out? I made a decent cry.